Yes.
Okay, so year 11, we started yesterday annotating the interaction between King Richard and Lady Anne, so Act 1, Scene 2, and we had so we had underlined these words that refer to the dead king and his son, or the dead king in particular, as being honourable, and these words that Anne uses to describe him. It really provides this juxtaposition between the honourable king who's been slain and the evil Richard. And if we just skip to the end of this scene when Richard is alone, I know we kind of are skipping ahead here, but it's because when he turns to the audience and he goes, "Check out what I have just done, how good am I?" He confirms the honour and the virtuousness of those that he's killed, to really point out how clever his evil manipulations have been in persuading Lady Anne to marry him. So for this juxtaposition, let's look at this final speech, and we will go back to the start of the scene, but just to really point it out, it is okay. Now, for me, it's page 29. I don't know if that aligns with the page numbers that everyone else has got. Does that kind of align or no? Yes? No? Yep. Okay, so I'm looking at line 245 here on mine, and he is, just above this. So he refers to these two men that Lady Anne has lost because he's killed them, and he calls the man that she calls him husband. I think they're actually engaged, or whether they're engaged or married doesn't matter. He's saying, has she forgot already that brave prince? So he talks about him being brave. Edward, her lord, whom I some 3 months since stabbed in my angry mood at Tewkesbury, a sweeter and lovelier gentleman. So he's talking here about the son, the husband of Anne, a sweeter and lovelier gentleman, framed in the prodigality of nature. And do we have, okay, and if yours is the same, here it tells us that little section means that he was excessively gifted. So not only was he sweet and lovely, but he was also gifted. So we might just write that there, gifted. Young, valiant, wise, and no doubt royal. Now here, no doubt right royal. So the whole thing is Richard is taking the crown illegally according to Shakespeare, and that it isn't what God wanted. And so he's saying that right here means completely royal. And so he's saying that, yeah, he was the rightful royal leader, or he was going to inherit the throne. And he was young, valiant, wise, royal. So he's saying everything that Lady Anne has been saying about these men. So confirming Lady Anne's it's an E at the end of Anne. The spacious world cannot again afford. So he's basically saying there's not going to be another man as good as the one that I have killed. And he goes, and will she yet abase her eyes on me that cropped the golden prime of this sweet prince? So golden prime and sweet prince. and made her widow to a woeful bed. O me, whose all not equals Edward's moiety. So he's saying here, if you look to the left, you should have Edward's moiety means a tiny fraction of his worth. So he's saying, he's confirming, I am not worth, in terms of his goodness, a tiny fraction of what Edward was. But I have won over this. So he's saying my evil has won over their valour, their honour, their goodness. Now, we're going to go back to where we're up to towards the start. I just wanted to point out that he is confirming everything she said about how good they are in order to really revel in the fact that he's defeated them, that he's won. It makes him really vile for the audience. So this is where Anne has been lamenting. This is before Richard's come out. She's asked the men carrying the corpse to lay down their load so that she can continue to grieve their loss. And let me just focus this, see if that helps a little bit. Now, when she says here, this is where we've got her cursing Richard and insulting him. So let's go through and we're going to point out all of these examples, because this is the juxtaposition of the characters of King Edward and his son, and the juxtaposition with Richard's character is what we're getting here. Now, because she was engaged to, where is my little, where is the, I'm just, here we go. I need to clean up my desk again, it's gotten a bit messy. Who's got their little, actually it's at the back here, don't worry. What is it? Here we go, okay. Yes, it is Edward. Okay, I was just wanting to double check that I wasn't misusing Edward again. So she was betrothed to Edward. So here when we talk about Edward, it's not Edward the king, it's Edward the man that she was going to marry, that she refers to as husband. And so up the top here, if we just write the honour, and what does she say? Virtue. The honour and virtue of the slain King Henry and her husband Edward, King Henry the Sixth. Henry the Sixth. Slain Henry the Sixth. And it's done so through through her assessment of each, because I guess the really sad thing here is that, hello, of the actual book, kind of not, well, Swansea were going to be, like, it was going to be a bit difficult because they wanted to go through libraries and do a whole thing. This is potentially a spare copy of mine. I don't think I've got my name in. Let me put my name in it. Okay. So, yeah, that one is mine. No worries. Okay, so yeah, what I was saying, it's really sad. Like, this is a really sad moment that Anne actually assesses Richard correctly. She is 100% spot on in the way that she perceives him in this moment. But by the end, she's changed her mind, and it's her ultimate downfall that she's changed her mind. So when she starts calling him all of these horrible things, let's see what she calls him. So, this is where Richard has entered, and she calls him black magician to start with. So she calls him a black magician. What black magician? Or she's not calling Richard this. She's saying what black magician has conjured up this fiend. So she's saying a black magician has conjured up Richard. So she calls Richard a fiend to stop devoted charitable deeds, and then she calls him the devil. So we've got lots of religious imagery here where she's likening Richard to the devil. Mortal eyes cannot endure the devil. Then she calls him a dreadful minister of hell. So, religious imagery. And then she continues with this religious assessment of him, where she calls him foul devil. She says that his deeds are heinous, thy heinous deeds. And this is where Henry's wounds are bleeding afresh because his murderer is there. And she's telling him, blush, like you should be ashamed of yourself. And here, listen to this insult. Thou lump of foul deformity. That's a great insult. You are a lump of foul deformity. For 'tis thy presence that exhales this blood. Thy deeds inhuman and unnatural. So here she's really letting the audience know that he is not of God. And then she refers to his arm as hell governed. So she's saying that it is his arm that was hell governed that held the sword that butchered Henry. So all of this religious imagery. The devil, minister of hell, foul devil, foul deformity, inhuman, unnatural, hell governed. And then she goes on and she calls him a villain. And thou knowest nor law of God nor man. So again, likening him to an evil supernatural entity. like a witch or an instrument of the devil. And then she again refers to him as the devil, because he says oh wonderful when devils tell the truth. And then she says diffused infection of man. Curse thy cursed self. Now we're about to get into the curses. So before we go much further, let's have a look at the way he is countering her insults with flattery. So as she's saying, so this is where he is getting angry at the pallbearers and saying, do as I say, set down the corpse. And he calls her sweet saint. So it's the opposite in religion. So he's also using religious imagery, but the opposite type. So he's sweet saint, for charity be not so cursed. So don't be so spiteful, don't be so angry. Basically telling her to calm down. And then she comes out with all of these great foul devil, lump of foul deformity, you're inhuman and unnatural. And he calls her lady. You know no rules of charity, and charity here is Christian belief, which renders good for bad, blessings for curses. And when she says, oh wonderful when devils tell the truth, he counters it with more wonderful when angels are so angry. So it's the religious imagery there of that. Am I leaving out the E there? O-M-A-G-E-R-Y. You'd think. And then he says she is a divine perfection of a woman. So he keeps on taking these curses, like he's a lump of foul deformity and she's a divine perfection of a woman. So it is like that tennis match where they're hitting them back at each other. And this is where he's saying, let me explain, let me give you the evidence as to why I am not the devil you think I am, and why I had to commit these crimes. And this is where she starts cursing. And so the tragedy here is that she is unknowingly cursing herself. To curse thy cursed self. She had previously been cursing him when he wasn't there. So at the start he'd said, cursed be the hand, curse the heart that had the heart to do it. So she'd had this spell that, or this spell-like speech that had begun, and here, now that she's in front of him, she's picking that up and beginning to curse him to his face. And then he is saying, please just allow me to explain myself. And she continues that with the insults. Fouler than heart can think thee, thou canst make no excuse current but to hang thyself. So she's cursing him, and then she tells him to hang himself. And she's saying that that would be worthy vengeance on thyself. So the only way he could be worthy would be to make up for what he did that was unworthy. So the slaughter of the others was unworthy. If he was to hang himself, that would make him that would redeem himself in some way. That would be the only worthy thing that he could possibly do. And then he says, well, say that I didn't kill them. And she's like, oh, well, then say that they were not killed, but dead they are, and devilish slave by thee. So again, back to these religious insults. He's devilish slave. I did not kill your husband. Why, that he is alive. Nay, he is dead and slain by Edward's hands. And so he's trying to say here, oh no, it was the king who killed him. And she's going, well, you're a liar, because Queen Margaret saw you murder him. She saw your sword with the blood of him as he had been killed. It's you. And he says, but I was provoked by her slanderous tongue that laid their guilt upon my guiltless shoulders. And she says, thou was provoked by thy bloody mind. So here the insults again. And then she calls him a hedgehog, because she's like, so what? Are you saying you didn't kill the king? And he's going, no, I did. So it's this back and forth that he's really playing word games with her. So he's like, I didn't kill him. Yes, you did. No. And because his reasoning is, in the end, it wasn't my fault that I killed them. And he's going to come around to, it was your fault that they're dead. If you weren't so beautiful, if you weren't so worthy of a virtuous husband, I wouldn't have had to kill them. So it's not my fault, it's your fault. He totally gaslights her. And she ends up believing him. It's really clever evil. It's horrible. So, but here, she's still calling him these names. She's called him a hedgehog, which was a great insult. She tells him, thou mayst be damned for that wicked deed. So this is the cursing again, okay? So when she is cursing him, when she's saying he should be damned, and again we've got the religious imagery. So cursing with religious imagery. And again, oh, he was gentle, mild, and virtuous. So this is where we were at the end of the scene. We had Richard confirming Lady Anne's assessments of him, that he was young, valiant, wise, the right royal. He was gentle, mild, and virtuous. So let's just go with juxtaposing And then he has the audacity to say, the better for the King of Heaven that hath him. So he goes, well, he was such a good man. Isn't it wonderful now that God has him? So I've actually done a good thing here. I've given him to God. What a great gift that I've given. And Anne says, he is in heaven where thou shalt never come. Let him thank me that hope to send him thither, for he was fitter for that place than earth. So now, this is the cleverness of what he's doing. He's not disagreeing with her. He's not trying to say, oh, he was a terrible man and he needed to die. He's going, yep, you're right. He was wonderful. And isn't it good that I've given God this gift? And you know what? He was too good for this earth. I've just helped him to heaven because he deserves to go to heaven. He's too good for this world. So it makes it difficult to argue with because he's agreeing with her. So this is really the cleverness of his rhetoric. We're just going to write this bit here. Richard's clever rhetoric okay, he is agreeing with Anne so it makes it really hard. If he said, no, he was a terrible man and he deserved to die, that gives us something to fight against. That gives us something to argue against. And he's not even giving her that. He's saying, yep, you're right. And she says that you are unfit for any place but hell, and thou art fit for any place but hell. And then this is where he says, yes, one place is. So again, he's not arguing with her. He's like, yep, I'm fit for hell. But there's also another place that I'm fit for, if you will hear me name it. She said a dungeon, and he goes, your bedchamber. And she says, I'll rest betide that chamber where thou liest. Now, think of how many times the word liest is said either by Richard or around Richard. It's used as a pun because here she's talking about literally lying down in a bed, but it's also Richard's lies, which the audience is aware of. So the audience can understand that pun because of the dramatic irony of them knowing that he's lying. And then we've got it here. So will it, madam, till I lie with you. So he's talking in a bit of a double entendre here. He's saying lie with you in bed, but he's also tongue-in-cheek. It's like he's so confident that in what he's doing that he can literally say to her, I'm lying to you, but in a way that also makes it sound like I want to lie in bed with you, and he knows that she's not going to pick up on it. So he's, let me see if we write Richard is so confident. Yeah.
Why does he want Lady?
That's actually a good question, and one that there's not a clear-cut answer to. So people have theorised over why he wanted Lady Anne and whether there was some benefit to be had in his quest to be king, that he was married to someone of the status of Lady Anne. It could be, though, that, and I think this kind of fits really well, that he is just such an evil character and he's so confident in his manipulations that he wants to marry her because he slaughtered her husband, and he wants to show everyone, look at what I can do. I can murder her husband and yet convince her to marry me. So it's almost like he's fulfilling his own sense of self-satisfaction by how far can I take this thing. in looking for Richard, they kind of have this, why does she need to marry Lady Anne? And someone says, oh, it's because of these family connections. But I think there's definitely the case that he's going, because at the end he goes, was ever a woman in this humour wooed? Has ever a woman who's mourning the slaughtering of her husband and father-in-law then agreed to marry the man who killed them? So I think he's doing it for his own evil satisfaction of how far he can manipulate people. But I think, there's probably also some political gain there in marrying Lady Anne and being, being the husband to someone of like good breeding, I guess. But I think he's just wanting to really mess things up even further. So he's so confident that he's telling Anne he's literally lying, and it's so loosely. Oh, actually, I won't write loosely. It is. If we say thinly veiled. Oh, so thinly hidden. So I've ended up there with it's thin. He's thinly hidden this lie, like he's saying, I'm lying to you, and he's thinly hidden it as a sexual suggestion, where he's like, oh no, I want to lie with you, and he's entertaining himself, I think. He thinks he's hilarious. He thinks he's so clever. And is he clever? Kind of is. He really is. He's not wrong. He did woo her. And then he here is countering the insults that she was throwing at him. So he's called her sweet saint, lady, angel, divine perfection of a woman. And he continues here with gentle Lady Anne. But gentle Lady Anne, to lead this keen encounter of our wits and fall into a slower method is not the causer of the timeless deaths of these Plantagenets, Henry and Edward, as blameful as the executioner. And she says, you were the one, you were the cause and the effect, it's your fault that they're dead. And then this is where he brings out the big guns and he gaslights her so cleverly. He's like, you were the cause. Your beauty was the cause of that effect. So, it is equally a compliment It is a compliment and the greatest insult at the exact same time. Your beauty killed your husband and your father. And he repeats it. Your beauty that did haunt me in my sleep. So we've got a NAFRA here. To undertake the death of all the world so that I might live 1 hour in your sweet bosom. And she says, if I thought that, I tell thee, and when she says homicide here, it means murderer. I tell thee, murderer, these nails should rend that beauty from my cheeks. If I thought you were telling the truth, then I would scratch the beauty out of my face. And he says, these eyes, so himself, could not endure that beauty. I wouldn't be able to bear to see you ruin such perfect beauty. You should not blemish it. If I would stop you from doing that. As all the world is cheered by the sun, so I by that. It is my day, my life. Now, we have already said right at the start that there is this repeated allusion to the sun. This repeated image of the sun is used. So there's the sun, the literal sun, but then the son of York being the current king, his brother. The positive connotations of the sun. But here, when he said, there's lots of stuff going on here. He's saying, all the world is cheered by the sun, so you're my son. It is you that for me gives me my day, it gives me my life, it is my only happiness. So he's giving her that power of the sun. So if we go repeated motif, but it's a lie. He's not actually giving her that power. He's pretending that she has that power over him. And here, she's this is the antithesis, isn't it? It is my day, my life, and she says, black night overshade thy day, and death thy life. So, I just want us to make the note here that this is antithesis. Where's the orange one? Okay, oh sorry, it's that one. Day, night, and life and death. Now, again, this dramatic irony, because as she goes on and continues to curse him, we know that ultimately she's cursing herself because she's going to be his wife. And here, very cheekily, he says, curse not thyself, fair creature, thou art both. So she's saying, because he says, you're my day, you're my life, and she says, if that was the case, then black night should overshadow thy day and death thy life. So she's here calling herself night and death rather than wanting to be his day and his life. And ironically, she's foreshadowing the future for herself. So let's do this. Actually, we'll put it with the antithesis here. We'll say foreshadows her own future. Curse not thyself. It's so ironic. And again with the compliments. fair creature, thou art both. And here, I think this is ambiguous because on the surface, he's going, oh, you're both day and life. But is he actually saying, you're both night and day and death and life? I think that he's being deliberately ambiguous here, but in a way that the audience might understand, but Lady Anne does not. And so this is the implication. So he's quite the wordsmith. He's really playing around with words here. And I mean, I think that in this moment I can understand why Lady Anne doesn't pick up on any of this, because she is so angry in these moments and she's so full of hate for him still. And it's confusing her that he's suddenly complimenting her when she's known him to be nothing but an enemy. And so she's starting to get rattled. Remember, she's also grieving, so she's not in a good headspace to begin with. And then he tells her that, oh, it's unnatural for you to want to revenge me when I love you. So he starts taking her insults and turning them around on her, because she's called him unnatural, and now he's saying, oh, it's unnatural of you to want revenge on someone who loves you so much. So he's using her own words against her. And then he ramps it up, because she says, no, this is a just and reasonable thing for me to want, because you've killed my husband. It's perfectly reasonable that I want revenge for that. And she says, well, I actually did this for you. I did it to help you find a better husband. And so this is where he's really pulling things around to make it her fault. And she says, his better doth not breathe upon the earth. So that's impossible. There is no one better. Let's just write, making it her fault. But he's playing around with words, he's twisting everything. Killed my husband, help thee to a better husband. And then Richard says, he lives that loves thee better than he could. So there is a man who loves you better than your dead husband could ever have loved you. And she goes, name him. Plantangent. Why, that was he, the self-same name, but one of better nature. Where is he? Here. And this is where he reveals that he's talking about himself. And she literally spits in his face. So she's been metaphorically spitting these words at him, these words of hate, and now she literally spits at him. And he goes, why dost thou spit at me? Would it were mortal poison for thy sake. So I wish it was poison that would kill you. and he turns her words again. Never came poison from so sweet a place. Never hung poison on a fouler and she says, never hung poison on a fouler toad. So they're taking each other's words and they're using them against each other. It's almost like a sword fight. Um, 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 It is like a metaphorical sword fight. They're countering each other because in a sword fight, that hitting of the swords against each blade, that bang, like that ting 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 of a sword fight, that's when there's a bit of equality happening. No one's managed to go under the other person's sword or to cause injury because it is kind of equal. So he's like, you've got this word, I'll take that word and I'll change it. And she goes, I'll take that word and I'll change it back. And so they're using the words in different ways. Alright, that takes us to the end of our lesson.